Yeah, I want to talk about Kierkegaard. Kierkegaard being he's not a Christian. I never considered him a Christian. It's interesting because I was looking at that and go, wow, that's not a Christian. That's a faithless Catholic. He's a Catholic, but not a Christian. And I was like, I should go read some of his stuff because I was just reading a little bit about some of his things, and I'm hearing bits and pieces of what he had to say. And then a whole bunch of his books were like being thrown out, and I was like, "Oh, what a coincidence!" It was like a day later. It was like, oh, there you go. And I hadn't got around to reading them though. I got looked over the chapter titles and maybe started reading a little bit. But reading summaries, I don't consider him a Christian. I don't consider Catholics Christians, and he was a Catholic, and you can hear him. They're talking about a Nietzsche, and they're like, oh, they're very similar, right? So the thing is, like, I got some good introspect on Nietzsche because again, it's very easy to simply dismiss Nietzsche and go, when you have the summation of his value, the fool says there's no God, and he quite dedicated himself to that because he said, we killed God, there's no God, and there's no science without that, and that's a good takeaway. And someone had said, doesn't that prove God? Yeah, it does actually. It does prove God. So that is the God. That is what God is. And if you look at his nihilistic behavior, that it wasn't rational. He wasn't behaving logically. He was behaving like a emotional curmudgeon and really working to cause more vulgarity in society, and it really take a lot more reading into what he had accomplished and done to make a more fair assessment in what I just said. But to dismiss his perspectives as simply as the fool says there's no God, that's a pretty rational simplification. And the Dunning-Kruger effect is in effect here, because any non-believer, which is the Machiavellians, the Kierkegaard's not a believer. He's a faithless Catholic. And knowing that the Catholics are faithless, that they're just manipulators, they use Christianity as a, cloak to pull the wool over the eyes of the people and have them, do all the work while you take all the credit. They got Mother Teresa, inflicting the children. Meanwhile, they're sending all the money back to the billionaires, in a decadent lifestyle for them, and all their vanities and perversions. So Nietzsche and Kierkegaard are recognizing that they don't see a God beyond that. That's the God they see. They see that there's a conceptual God. They don't believe that there's any metaphysics, supernature. They don't believe, supernature is not a concept. It's superstitious to them. They don't have no concept for it, and it's actually a scientific, possibility. You look at it, it's really, what is it? It's science. It's what it is, and the Bible doesn't say otherwise. It just says, this is the science. And it never says, to be irrational. That's not in the Bible. The Bible says be rational. That's your place, to be a rational human being, not a beast. That's the Bible. But Ayn Rand has no clue. She's very narcissistic, very arrogant, very ignorant, and she's coming from a whole club of very narcissistic, ignorant people. And to them, there is no God, but the manipulation of occultism. This is their Machiavellian way. That's their view. And, you see, I've dealt with these people for so long, and the astounding perversion of what they're saying. And now it's so much more coming to light because they're coming out of their illicit darkness, because they're so proud of being the occultists. They go, yeah, well, we're simply the masters because we're occultists, and that makes us the true, people who understand the truth. And you're saying that they're just, as Nietzsche said, they're just nonsensical. There's no sense in them. The mystic is just a babbler. That's literally, the Bible says the mystics are just babblers. And they are very vulgar. They're very violent. Because I can tell you about anecdotal reference, and you see this has been going on for thousands of years. It happens to people. You can read about it. It's a phenomenon that's only just being appreciated now on the internet, and barely, because I'm looking at a conversation on this topic just today. It was posted just today, and this has been going on for a long time. And you see these people, the complete, like this is the character. He says, my narcissistic sister, blah 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 blah. And so he's a gossiper, and he's a babbler, and he's a mocker, because all we're seeing in the context is that he is being ill-mannered and saying, hey, that person doesn't get to be treated fairly. It's one of those people. And you have a polarized people who are occultists, who are evil, the Machiavellians, the Roman Catholics, the Talmudists. They're faithless people. So they've been doing this their whole lives. So it's a very common thing to have a slanderer become validated. They go, yeah, that's one of us. We're the good guys. And then they're totally filthy. And here it is. These people are trying to, cover the topic, but they're blind. They're confused because they don't realize the subjective nature of it. And then the occultists will say, well, there is no objectivity. There's just subjectivity. So you're looking at it like, okay, so now we have the O'Brien in 1984. This is, Nietzsche's nightmare. This is, George Orwell. And what they're understanding, because they are the Machiavellian movers and shakers. They're the faithless Catholics pretending to be faithful. They're the faithless Talmudists pretending to be faithful, knowing full well they're not faithful. They have no belief in anything. And the Bible clearly points them out and says they see nobody can see us, and there's nobody but us. That's referring to these guys, but that's their perspective. So you're looking at it. This is the illustration of them, and here they are in the clinical sense. You're hearing these people go, "Oh no, it's just subjective." So what goes on? And I'll tell you, this is another example of what they do, like. Because tragedy bestrikes the innocent all the time, and it grounds. You look at pagan rituals where they have, the Wicker Man? They do this like horrible ritual abuse to these people. There's a ritual abuse, and that's what these occultists are. That's the mentality they have. That's what they are. That's what they do. And so this happens all the time. Let's say a tragedy happened. Yeah, you had some people, they followed you home, you never did anything to them, and they decided to just ruin your life and destroy things in a violent, terminal way with absolute devastation and cruelty. And he goes, yeah, so what? Whatever, stop crying. When I did today, I ordered a pizza. I ordered some pepperoni and sausage, and they didn't put the sausage on there. Oh my goodness. Gee, that's a real tragedy. I don't want to hear any of your bullshit because you don't know anything. You don't have eyes. You don't understand what's important. And they're serious. They're that like obscene inversion. That's their perversion, and that perversion, you see it in high places. This is their ritualistic abuse. This is the people who are running the courts, and it's to them magic. They're wizards because they can when they steal from you, that's your fault. That's a wizard. This is how these perverted people do.